Hey everybody, welcome back. The most common question I get asked, how do you keep score / what kind of scorebook is that? Well, I'm going to go ahead and show you my process while teaching you just the basics of how to keep score of a baseball game. And furthermore, I actually have a free to download PDF in the description so you can follow along of using the exact same score sheet that I use. Now, if you want to print this sheet out and do it with, pen and paper, just keep in mind, it's supposed to be on legal size paper. Just keep in mind, it's supposed to be on legal sized paper, or 14 inches as opposed to 11. It's still 8.5 wide, but it goes an extra couple of inches longer. So keep that in mind if you're going to print it out. But if you're going to use the iPad method like I show, then it's no problem at all. I use the app called GoodNotes. I do pay for the subscription. It is worth it for me given how much I'm using the app and the other features that it has and how much it impacts me. It helps me do my job. You don't have to pay for it. You can use any sort of PDF markup system that you so choose to wish. However, this is what I use. I'm not paid by them, not sponsored by anybody on this channel. So that's just part of the story of that. I found GoodNotes organically years ago, and I haven't tried anything else on the market, but I really, really do enjoy it for what I need it for. With that being said, let's go ahead and get you started on just the basics before we get into my process of how to keep score of a baseball game. All right, so let me bring you into here to my iPad mini that I keep score of the game with. Here's GoodNotes, and I'm just kind of doing this for demonstration purposes. Let me go ahead and show you a full one here. This is the historic Game 4, maybe the greatest game ever played, Shohei Ohtani against the Milwaukee Brewers. I was there for the NLCS for Game 4 working for TBS. So it's fully complete, but we don't need to get lost in the sauce here of how all this goes. We'll get to this later on. First things first, when I set up my score sheet, I always start with the visiting team's lineup in the main top column here. Then I use the home team starting pitcher in that same pitcher line setup. That way, whenever there's a pitching change, I don't have to change the entire sheet. Or, sometimes you'll see sheets have, maybe the Brewers starting pitcher here as opposed to the opponent. I think this just makes the workflow a little bit easier to say, like, this is the pitcher that faced against this lineup. So that's why I do it. The next thing that you keep in mind, of course, the batting order and the positions by number. This is the most important thing to learn here today, the positions by number. So I put them all here in tape. 1 is the pitcher, 2 is the catcher, 3 is the first baseman, 4 is the second baseman, 5 is the third baseman, more on that in a moment, 6 is the shortstop, then we go left to right in the outfield with 7, 8, 9. Now, again, same process that I use for my pitcher, or for my defense as I do for my pitcher, is that I have the opposing team's defense here to just show you that is how things align against this starting lineup. Now, I don't ever mark the pitcher just because there's usually like 5 or 6 pitchers a game, and that would make it very clunky. So you can see for the Dodgers defense on this game, Will Smith is the catcher, Freddie Freeman's the first baseman, Tommy Edman, Mookie Betts, Max Muncy, so on and so forth. You understand that. That's just the basic setup. As to why the shortstop is 6, there's an article, I linked it down below, from the Society of American Baseball Research. I'm a member, would recommend you to do so as well, of how this happened way back in the 1890s. Okay, baseball tradition goes back further than you can imagine. So the reason why it's 6 and not 5, in short, is because the shortstop wasn't always on the infield. In fact, the shortstop used to be more of a rover because back in old-time baseball, there weren't fences. You may think of Polo Grounds as being a massive ballpark when you play MLB The Show. Think of no fences, the ball rolling forever. The shortstop was a shortstop for the relay throw to come into somebody who had their position. So it was much more normal to see 3 infielders as opposed to, say, 4 infielders and the catcher. You'd have 3 guys on the dirt and the shortstop just kind of roving the outfield. But that's an aside as to why the shortstop is the number 6 in your official scoring. So why does that matter? The reason why we talk about positions by number in official scoring is because we use them to actually mark down our plays. So let's go ahead and go back into the fully complete game here. And we'll do some watch-alongs here as well. We'll go through the first inning together and score it. But you look here in the second inning, 3U, P6, 4-3. All these plays that I wrote in black here. 3U means a ground ball unassisted by the first baseman. You may wonder, why do you mark that number? Why do you mark that letter? Well, it's whoever fields the putout. There's defensive statistics just like there are batting average statistics, pitching statistics. So you give assists, you give putouts. These things matter in old-timey box scores, not so much when everything's automated today. So in this case, the first baseman was Freddie Freeman for the Dodgers. Jake Bauers grounded out to first base. Freddie Freeman gets credit for the putout. The next batter, Sal Frelick, P6. Use your critical thinking skills. P stands for pop out. And we'll talk about air outs, fly outs, and how you just mark it based on who caught the baseball. So the shortstop caught the baseball, P6. And then lastly here, Caleb Durbin, he grounded out for 3. There's our ground out. It was a ground ball to the second baseman, 4. Then he assisted that ball to throw to the first baseman, 3, as the putout. So Tommy Edman gets credit with an assist, and Freddie Freeman gets credit with another putout. You can keep track of this, and that's how we get the most basic fielding number that there is. That's fielding percentage. Putouts, assists, attempts, that sort of thing. So that is the simplest way to do some of the building blocks of scoring. Then you may see some other things that pop up here in the score sheet, right? Let's go over here to the 7th inning. You have a leadoff walk, a base on balls, okay? Then you have a single. I like to draw a line. I'll break that down in a moment. We have a pitching change here for this red line. I have a pinch hitter here for this black line. P6, IF. Think for a moment. IF, infield fly. Because there are runners on first and second, we always denote where the runners are going. That means infield fly rule is in effect. The ball didn't leave the infield. Batter's automatically out. Then finally, 6-3 GIDP. I'll go ahead and flash them on the screen so it makes sense. It was a double play, grounded into double play, fielded by the shortstop. He stepped on second base and then threw the first. So he gets both a putout and an assist, and then the first baseman gets one more putout on top of that. So that's how you mark a 6-3 grounded into double play. You always mark where base runners are going or if their line stops. For instance, we go here to the 8th inning, a leadoff double. He got to third on a stolen base and then scored when you go up here to a fielder's choice ground out. Now, I always put a dot to denote that player received an RBI on that play. And that dot helps coincide of how runners scored. Generally, there's colors and that I like to use, and I'll break that down in a moment. But you always have to make sure you're keeping track of the runner and how they are advancing across the base paths. Fielder's choice outs, however, don't count as hits. And while this batter runner reaches first base on a ground ball toward the second baseman, you notice I note down here, this is the batter that was out. Now, ordinarily, I would be writing 4-3 down here, or 4-6, to denote that was the fielder's choice out. I made a mistake there and forgot to write it. I don't always have room to do so here, but I'll go ahead and slide it in there. So it's a fielder's choice. It went 4-6 on the putout, and that allowed the runner to reach. It eliminated this runner as a walk, and it set up a situation with a runner on first, and it scored the runner from third. I think that all makes sense. One thing you'll also notice too is whenever you're at a game, generally the Jumbotron has somewhere on it to say the official scorer ruling. There's every single game, there is an official scorer employed by Major League Baseball to actually assign errors, to assign whether or not a play is a hit, whether or not a play is advancing on a throw, or if it's a double. All these things are a little complicated, but understand this. It's an ordinary effort. And I'll flash the official ruling of how somebody is given an error from the official Major League Baseball rulebook. But the point being is there is somebody in charge of this decision, one person inside the press box that decides, is this an error or is this a base hit? So when the inning ends, I like to go down here. I don't have them labeled on my score sheet, but you'll notice I have them over here in the final box score: runs, hits, errors, and left on base. So we just use that as runs, hits, errors, left on base. And then you can add them up at the very end of the day and you'll get all of these totals right here. That's kind of the foundational building block of a box score, where you can take a peek at just these 4 final numbers and kind of get a feel for how the game went. And then you can dive a little bit deeper into your box score. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and watch the top of the first inning together of Brewers, Dodgers, Ohtani on the mound, and go through this pitch by pitch. And then at the end of this inning, I'll go ahead and explain what every single dot means on my score sheet. So let's go ahead and speed it up and watch this together.
Adam Beck is the home plate umpire. He says play ball on the first pitch from Ohtani. Championship series. Here's Ohtani trying. 2-0 to Terang. Frenchie in the against the heavy hitting Philadelphia Phillies. Not only was that to the count to Bryce Terang. And that one misses. And that was my. And he issues a walk to start the ball game. The speedy Terang is aboard.
So, one at-bat in, let's just go ahead and show you what every dot means in this first at-bat. When you look at it, blue for me equals a ball. Okay, anything that doesn't include a base hit, doesn't have the ball in play, doesn't include an at-bat, like if it was a sacrifice bunt, but walks, hit by pitches, sacrifice flies, sacrifice bunts, anything that doesn't count as an at-bat but counts as a plate appearance, I mark in blue. You'll notice I have the dots here for ball one, ball two. I always write left to right for keeping pitch by pitch. So ball one, 2-0 count. The dash here, the vertical dash, is a foul ball. So anytime that a ball is swung at, I'm able to keep track of that and keep my own manual version of whiff rate. I'll show that here in the completed scorebook here in a second. So back-to-back foul balls, and now I can just peek at this and understand it's a 2-2 count. Then another ball is taken, ball three, full count, 3-2 count. He ultimately, on the sixth pitch of the at-bat, draws a walk, base on balls, ball four. That is how the basic inning goes for me, and I repeat that, hopefully 60 or so times a game with every single plate appearance in the contest. So let's go ahead and go to that completed one. You see how the rest of the inning went. The other thing about the way I keep score, in addition to swings, I also keep track of swings and misses. That's what the circle is. This wasn't a very good circle, but an empty dot, a circle with an empty center is my version of marking a swing and miss. So if you look at it for Jackson Churrio's at bat here, fouled off the first pitch, swung and missed at the second pitch, fouled off the third pitch, and swung and missed by a regular forward-facing K, that's a strikeout. It was Ohtani's first strikeout of the game. It was on a fastball. It was on the fourth pitch. And then if you dive a little deeper, Churrio swung at all four pitches that he saw in that at-bat. So let's go to the next one. This is Christian Yelich's at-bat. He worked the count to 2-0. Then fouled off the 2-0 pitch, took the 2-1 pitch for a called strike, fouled off the 2-2 pitch, and on the sixth pitch of the at-bat, he struck out looking his second strikeout of the game, also on a fastball. Some people use the backwards K. I've always preferred to use the circle K as to denote a swinging strikeout is a forwards K and a looking strikeout is a circle K. For me, it's easier for me to identify it as opposed to writing a backwards K, and some people like to do it. I don't. To each your own. You can do whatever you want. Then the last at-bat here, William Contreras also swung at the first pitch but fouled it off, swung and missed at the second pitch, and struck out third K, third pitch on a sweeper, SW. And then I'll go down here to the bottom. No runs, no hits, no errors. One man was left on base from that leadoff walk to Bryce Terang. I add up all the pitches per at-bat here, right? So 6 plus 4, 10, 6 plus 9, 9, or 6 plus 3, 9, so that's 19. Then I add up all the strikes. All I got to do is subtract how many balls. So there were 4 balls in this at-bat, 2 balls in this at-bat. 19 minus 6 equals 13. So he threw 19 pitches, 13 of them were strikes, and this 4 denotes swings and misses, whiffs. There's 1, there's 2, there's 3, there's 4 swings and misses. You following me here? Okay, good, because it's going to get a little chaotic in the bottom half of this inning when we look at the Dodgers offense. So let's pick things up here as Ohtani is about to go yard for his first homer of the game. And I'll just have this in the already filled out score sheet here.
Season a year ago, his last one against the Dodgers in Game 4 of the LCS, and there goes Ohtani. Shohei It's a leadoff home run after he struck out 3 in the top of the first, and the Dodgers lead it 1-0.
So let's look at that real quick here. We knew it was a 3-2 pitch, as you saw in the scorebook, but you can see the path of how we got here. Ball 1, called strike, ball 2, ball 3, foul ball on the 3-1 pitch that brought us to 3-2. I always like to put a line of where the ball actually went whenever there's a base hit. So this was a home run. I put a dot for that RBI like I talked about earlier, and you color it in whenever you score the run. That's simple, right? But now let's go ahead and watch the rest of this inning to see how it developed and how we would mark it in our score sheet here.
And now Mookie bats into left field, a base hit. Been a lot of talk made about the intentional walks to Ohtani. Is Will Smith on the first pitch. Perkins coming in, can't get it. Knocks it down, Betts on his way to third. And the Dodgers come out swinging. And a swing and a miss, Quintana.
So I'll pause here for a moment to show you another little quirk I like to do in my score sheet. You may notice this little patch of green highlighter here. That is a signal to me that this at-bat came with a runner in scoring position. So you had runners on first and second, or rather first and third after Betts went first to third on the single by Smith. So a runner in scoring position, in case you're not familiar, is anytime there's a runner on third base or second base. In theory, it means that that runner can score on a base hit. That means that runner is in scoring position. These at-bats are critical for success, as we know, when you get base hits, when you can score runs without necessarily the home run. So Freddie Freeman, here in this at-bat, struck out on a fastball. It was the first at-bat of the game with a runner in scoring position. It would be different for the next batter, as you can see, with Tommy Edman.
Against Quintana's Mets last season. Hamilton on the ground, through for a base hit. In to score is Betts. Smith on his way to third, and Tommy Edman continues to rake.
So you saw it there. Another at-bat with a runner in scoring position, a dot for the RBI to score the run. Smith comes in to score, or rather Betts comes in to score on that. Smith goes first to third, as I keep the green line there going, and Edman stays put at first base. There was another RBI here in the inning with Teoscar Hernandez.
One of the better defensive teams in baseball. Right off the end of the bat, Bauer's coming in. He'll put the tag on Hernandez. Going to bring in another run.
There's that RBI dot there. Another at-bat with a runner in scoring position. So because Teoscar was retired on an out, I mark it in black. And that runner scores on an out, so I fill it in black as well. So if you haven't figured out my color code yet, let me just go through it one more time. Anything that's a strikeout or an error, or anything to do with swinging the bat, I put in red. Anything that's a base hit, you've made it onto grass, green, that's my thought, is green for base hits. That's the only color that's used for green in my entire score sheet. That means something good happened. We talked about it a moment ago, but blue is for walks, sac flies, anything that doesn't count as an at-bat but counts as a plate appearance. And then finally, black for outs or for putouts or fielder's choices or that sort of thing. That's a very basic peek at how I keep score of my games. If you have any other questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, go ahead and put it down below in the comments. Trying to be a little bit more active here on YouTube coming up into the off season as we explore some of the ways that I enjoy being a baseball fan, and with the World Series right around the corner, feel like this is a great way for you, the fan, to stay engaged with the game, even if your team isn't in it. But keep a little memento, because I promise you this, I am going to frame, even though this is a digital score sheet, I am going to print this out and frame it and say that I saw maybe the greatest baseball game ever played by Shohei Ohtani. That is going to do it for this episode. Maybe we'll have another episode of follow-up down the road if there are enough questions about it, but that is how I keep score of Major League Baseball game. And again, go check out the description for your own download. Again, it's legal size of this sheet if you want to print it out, but it works just fine if you want to use it on an iPad. I'm Dom Cotroneo. Keep on swinging.